The most important thing for us to consider is a question of what we are in need of as individuals, families, communities, and as an ummah. And many people today in the ummah, if we were to wonder, what do many people want? They want to be rescued from oppression. They want to be relieved of the responsibilities of the time that we are in. Many people want a hero or a superhero. And we look back at times and romanticize the history that led to great achievements. And oftentimes we hear of people referencing certain names, like the name of Salahuddin Ayyubi rahimahullah, a man that's famously known for a specific moment in his life, the liberation of Al-Aqsa and many of the nearby lands. May Allah allow us to see a free Aqsa, Allahumma ameen. When we think of this reality, when people ask, when someone says, where is Salahuddin today? Where's the Salahuddin of our times? We have to remember two things. First, every generation, for every zaman, there's a specific type of leader and follower, specific circumstances that will differentiate the people of our times and the leaders of our times and the facilitators of goodness in our times from those that came before. So you may be very young, you may be old, you may have no experience, you may have a lot of experience. Men and women from all walks of life, every ethnicity amongst our ummah around the world. And you could contribute to the goodness of the ummah in different ways. And the second thing to keep in mind, oftentimes when people say, where is the next Salahuddin, or where is this person who will save us? And the reality is we should strive, we should initiate goodness. We should not wait for others to save us from oppression. We should be relieving others of oppression. And oftentimes when we shift the responsibility external to us and our families and our local communities and the entirety of the ummah, we tend to then delay the goodness of that ummah. We tend to delay the potential goodness in the children of the ummah who grow up with great ambitions, who grow up with that tarbiyah. The mothers and the fathers who spend countless hours sacrificing for their children. That is the next leader of the ummah, but it's going to be in a different form. When we look at the legacy of Salahuddin, there are three main things I want to share very quickly that are timeless lessons for the day of Eid, in light of what's happening in Palestine today. Number one, Salahuddin Ayyubi was known for political things, strategizing as a general. But what many people do not know is that he cared a lot about ilm. He cared a lot about knowledge with understanding, knowledge that raises the standards for the ummah. He used to surround himself with the people of the Quran. He used to be praying qiyam and making dua. So it's not about one aspect of the ummah, a protest or a vote, those are important. No, but it is about a comprehensive connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Muslims in this country, we have a responsibility perhaps than most of the ummah when it comes to certain aspects of understanding Islam, practicing Islam, teaching Islam to the non-Muslims around us. That when we engage politically, we understand what it means to be part of a system that is corrupt, but we hope to reform and change in different ways. A long struggle and a long vision, not a short-term goal. But I also want to emphasize this. For all the amazing parents, may Allah bless them all, the mothers and the fathers around the world who are teaching their children, it is important that if a child is given 12 years of secular education, and then another few years of secular education in college, and they end up with only a year or two of Islamic education, it is a problem. It is a problem in terms of priorities, not because of the former. There's no problem with Muslims specializing in every single field, doing well and excelling. But it is important for every Muslim who's excelling in those fields to also have a minimum standard of ilm, a minimum standard of understanding what is Islam, what's my duty, what's my role, what are the essentials, the basics of Islam that every one of us has access to today. It also means reminding our youth and reminding the adults as well, but especially the youth. Although there are differences amongst Muslims within the ummah, there are different madhahib in fiqh, different understandings in aqeedah, that we know when to talk about our differences and how. Because when someone comes to kill and slaughter a community of Muslims, they do not ask, are you Sufi or Salafi or Ash'ari, Maturidi or Athari or anything else. They don't care about your madhab. And it's not to say that we do not care. It's not to say that we don't seek truth. But it's to say to know when to emphasize differences and how. That we should not cause greater divisions. Ilm of Islam should be bringing the ummah together, especially in times like this. The reality of Islam is that it is so simple. You do not need any complicated philosophy, any advanced language. It's the pillars of Iman. Who is your Lord? What is the final message? How do you worship Allah? These are the things the overwhelming majority of the ummah are in need of. And when we raise that standard so that every Muslim in all of their fields also has a standard of ilm, we will find benefit when people come together with their different specializations benefiting the ummah as well. So once again, remember the legacy and the liberation of certain individuals. It's not about that singular moment. It's also about what came before it. The second reminder from the legacy of Salahuddin Ayyubi rahimahullah is that of unity. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us many commands in the Quran. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold firmly to the rope of Allah, the covenant of Allah, and do not divide. Do not become divided. We know the problems of division. We are living in that generation, that era. We see what happens when someone who's coming from a certain nation state, a modern nation state, will look down on someone from a nearby, neighboring nation state. Is that Islam? That is not part of Islam. The reality of the situation that we are in is that divisions are constantly used against us to weaken us. And we see this. And the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can be seen historically. What a lot of people do not know is that Salahuddin Ayyubi was able to bring what they said at the time, Ibn Shaddad and other historians, the Muslims of the Arab background, the Turkic background, the Akra, the Kurds, he was able to bring them together under his leadership because he knew that unity was important. Unity was strength. We know this today. In this country alone, we are the most diverse religious group in the United States of America. And you look around the world, 2 billion Muslims, the nation states, the modern states, do not matter to us. What matters to us is the truth. What matters to us is justice. What matters to us is what is good. At the end of his life, Salahuddin Ayyubi was actually on the defending end of the Third Crusade. Richard, the so-called Lionheart, tried to come back and attack Al-Aqsa once again. And when he came to the area outside of Jerusalem and he saw that Salahuddin fortified it, and he asked his people, his army, what did Salahuddin do? And they told him he's actually alive and he's in Jerusalem, refused to leave. He said, this is a city that cannot be besieged so long as Salahuddin is alive and the Muslims are united. And the Muslims are united. And the Muslims are united. We look at the state of the ummah today. And if we say we feel frustration that the ummah is divided, then let's take the first step within our homes. The husband and the wife, children with their parents, siblings with relatives and one another. That we are people that when there's a problem, we don't run away. We don't make the problem bigger. We look to solve the problem. Shaitan is the enemy in these situations trying to divide between us. Our organizations, our individuals, our amazing movements out there all across the world. There's a lot of khair in our ummah, a lot of goodness. But we have to be wiser than the traps of shaitan and the traps of those who seek to divide and to conquer. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us unity. Allahumma ameen. And the third and the final reminder. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands us, Ud'uni astajib lakum. Call upon me, I will respond to you. The night before the battle of Badr, the Prophet ﷺ was begging Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for victory. We might think, well, make dua for a little and then move on. No, the Prophet kept repeating sallallahu alayhi wasallam the dua over and over and over. And on the day of Badr, to the extent Abu Bakr radiallahu anh came up to him and he pulled at his hand and he said, you have begged Allah enough, Ya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Meaning you made all the dua that you could. The night before the battle of Hattin and the night before the Third Crusade, Salahuddin Ayyubi was seen by the historian Ibn Shaddad making dua and crying, begging Allah for victory. We remind our students, study, 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 study for that success that you desire. Those who want to succeed in their jobs, work hard at your job. Those who want to have a flourishing marriage, make sure you are investing in your marriage, you are giving. And so we're always emphasizing doing and sacrificing. This is the month of sacrifice. Today is the day of sacrifice, Yawm al-Nahr. And we talk about Ibrahim alayhi salam and sacrifice. Likewise, one of the means of success is to really make dua. The same way for those who have been to Hajj or have seen the videos and pictures of Hajj, the same way the people at Arafah are begging Allah. In the last hour especially, everyone is making dua. People are crying. You no longer care who's watching you. You're no longer awkward or shy. Why? Because you know how important dua is on this day. And you know the reality is what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's response is nearby wherever you are. You do not need to be at Hajj. You do not need to be at Arafah for you to make dua like you are at Arafah. every single day and every single night, begging Allah for victory, for success, for forgiveness, for guidance, for your own situation, for your own relief as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us a people who really put our trust in Him. Dua is the weapon of the believer. Dua is a fortress for the believer. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us a people of dua who are consistent with it throughout the days and nights. There are many other lessons we don't have time to cover, but remember this: the standard of ilm in our ummah will determine what happens in the following generations. Number two, to unite and not divide, and start with yourself and your family. If you can criticize the ummah for being divided, but you can't bring your family together because of you, there's a problem in terms of implementation. So let us take advantage, especially on this blessed day, as our hearts and our minds are with our brothers and sisters, our family members around the world. We are also trying to take advantage by worshipping Allah through happiness, worshipping Allah by bringing the hearts together, worshipping Allah by forgiving the people who wronged us, worshipping Allah by bringing happiness to the children, the youth, and even our neighbors as well. And again, the third point is constantly go back to Allah in dua. Put your trust in Him, put your trust in Him, and do not wait for other people to initiate good in your community, in your family, in your personal life. Do not wait for others to initiate. You take the motion, you take the action. Start yourself, inshallah ta'ala, with what is good, and do not wait for other people to relieve you and others of oppression. Rather, rescue others from oppression. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alleviate the affairs of our brothers and sisters in every land and place. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, La ilaha illallah, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, walillahi alhamd. Ask Allah for forgiveness. Allah is the oft-forgiving, the ever-merciful. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم.